I think we can get started. I'm Brenda Sheridan. Thank you guys for coming to our session today. I am the Director of Marketing and Communications for Rutgers University, and we're really thrilled to be part of INFOcon. And I'm going to toss it to my colleague, Marissa, and she will introduce our speaker for today. Thank you. Please put your questions in the chat and I will get them to our speaker right after the session's over, and we can do a Q&A at that time. Thank you.
Thanks, Brenda. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Metadata in the Information World, the session for INFOcon 21. This session is being recorded, just to let you all know. A link to a playlist on YouTube will be provided this Sunday of all of the sessions, including this one. My name is Marissa Anema. I am the Assistant Director of Marketing and Communication for the Rutgers School of Communication and Information. I'm helping to moderate the session. As Brenda mentioned, she is also from Rutgers. She's monitoring the chat where you can submit questions, and there's going to be a Q&A section at the end of the session. So let's get started. I'm going to introduce our speaker. She is Yona Levinson. She is the Vice President, Group Director of Information Services for adid.org, which is the ID registry for advertisements. Yona is also the co-founder, co-director, and an instructor for our Digital Asset Management Certificate program. And just this past year was honored as a Rutgers Professional Development Instructor of the Year. She's also a proud alum of our MLIS program, which is now the MI program, Master of Information. Yona is also the founder and co-chair of the Language Metadata Table, an industry standard for language codes sponsored by the Media Entertainment Support Alliance and the Society for Motion Pictures and Television Engineers. Formerly, she was the manager of metadata strategy and taxonomy governance at Warner Media and HBO, as well as the senior metadata analyst for Pearson Education. She is a wealth of knowledge on her topic of metadata in the information world. So I will hand it over to her. Thanks, Yona.
Thank you, Marissa, and thank you, Brenda, for the introduction. And welcome everybody to this session at INFOcon. And thank you for the introduction. Even so, I went ahead, because that's me, I put in a slide so this way you have my LinkedIn address, and I just wanted and also now you have the links for the language metadata table, as Marissa mentioned, and a little bit more again about the DAM certificate program. I wanted just to mention that because of the language metadata table, we have right now we have 239 languages, and we're adding it like another 150. It's actually gotten me to become an internationally known speaker because, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about standards, because it's really important to make sure that the information, the metadata that one applies and provides is consistent as best as possible. And the language metadata table is something that really took a hold. And so that's gotten me the honor of being able to present in different locations, although recently it has actually been from my home, but to international locations. Pretty exciting. Before I dig into more information about metadata in the information age, I just want to give you a little bit of information about Rutgers. So the School of Communications was founded in 1982. The physical campus is Rutgers in Newark, and there's all different kinds of information which you guys can read. There are three main departments, which are communications, journalism, and media studies, and library and information science. I myself took all my courses online. Here's a list of the different academic programs that are available at SCI, as it's known, School of Communications Information. There's both undergraduate majors and minors. And there's the professional development studies, of which I'm the co-director of the DAM certificate program. And there is also a couple of other professional development programs. Then there's the master's degrees and doctoral. The master's, when I am from the class of 2016, I was not the oldest student in the class, which kind of surprised me. And I was also fortunate and I really wanted this. I wanted that master's in Library of Information Science. And now it's Master's of Information. You can get a concentration librarianship. So that's a little bit there. And again, these slides will be available so you can look and see what are the different programs that are available. So digging a little bit more, the iSchool and the Masters of Information, it's accredited by the American Library Association, and there's all different kinds of professional and academic contexts, that you can focus in. The areas of concentration are listed below, including archives and preservation. So there's a lot of people that are really want to make sure things are preserved in all different kinds of ways. The data science is growing for sure. Interactive design and informatics, all of these, library and information science. So I believe now it's an information science program with a concentration librarianship, and tech, etc. And what I really like is that you can design your own pathway. So Rutgers is so flexible. You can really figure out, find a place to do what you want and study what you want, make it your own. So the DAM certificate program, which we've now said like 4 times that I am the founder, co-founder, co-director, and instructor. We're up to 10 classes now, and they're listed here. I teach metadata for DAM, and I co-teach the integration, the content landscape. Our instructors are all people who have a lot of experience with DAM, and it's a lot of fun. So, feel free to look into that as well. Here's some more information about Sky with the numbers of students, majors, minors. Again, you guys can read these numbers. And as you can see, they've got a really nice number of full-time faculty as well as part-time faculty, of which I am one, and lots of different, research centers and alumni. I have found it really interesting in my metadata and DAM journeys that I often encounter Rutgers alums, and it's really nice to know we all have that common foundation to start our relationship and to build on that. So it's really, really pretty cool. I just want to give you a little bit more information about me and kind of how did I get to what I do today. What I have found when talking to a lot of people, one reason like that build your own masters and the DAM certificate program, for example, are very important is because these fields, our field of data and information is really growing, especially, because of COVID, and organizations realize like how much data they really need to, they want to have accessible especially with people working remotely. So a lot of us fell into our fields. I did not wake up when I was, or start applying to colleges and saying, I want to be a business information professional, because I don't know that really existed. So how did I get to where I am? So back in the previous century, I started my career as a typesetter. I worked on digital typesetting machines where we were able to create different kinds of codes. I could say, I could define, here's a level 1 head, here's what a paragraph is, here's what a quote looks like. And I found that really interesting. I designed workflows and I thought it was pretty cool. But at a certain point I had to move on. And then I worked for a company called Xi Enterprise, used to be called Xi Vision, where I was an application specialist, and I went around the country and helped companies start to convert from whatever they were using before, often a word processing system, to go into a batch pagination system where they could just flow the text in and pop the formatted document. Clients of mine included the American Kennel Club with little puppies running around my feet. That was fun. AAA, Merrill Lynch, all different kinds. Anybody, IEEE, the Engineering Association, anybody really that had structured documents that were consistently formatted. It was a great app. Those were great for this particular system. But it really got me to think about the structure of documents. And that has continued throughout my career. And that got me into my next job, which was legal publishing. I worked for RIA, which is now Thomson, I think it's Thomson Reuters. So we had to, again, building on that theme of structured data, we now had to break things out even smaller. You know, what are the different kinds of courts that are out there? What is the format of a citation look like? How can I find it again? And certainly in these two jobs as an application specialist and working in legal publishing, you know, lunchtime conversations might consist of something be like, it would be really cool if we could pull that information out because we already have it tagged as a level 1 head or as a citation, and then we can just build off of that because we got some really cool information in there. Continuing on that theme, when I worked at Pearson Education, again, dealing with the structured markup and then starting to get more into the metadata, designing systems and figuring out what all those different fields are that needed to be in the systems. Then I moved over to media and entertainment, where I started as HBO. While I was there, we were purchased by Time Warner and then purchased again by AT&T. And now evidently it's once again, now it's going to be Discovery, Warner Media or Warner Brothers, something like that. So, so that's actually a really interesting use case because if you work in a field that can be quite dynamic, having consistency becomes super important because when you're either bought or you buy, you want to incorporate the systems into your current organization. And if the metadata fields are consistent, it just really paves the way in a really cool way. Makes life a lot easier for everybody else. And as Marissa said, I now am the VP, Group Director of Information Services at AdID, because as you can imagine, there's a lot of different metadata that can be available about advertisements. And we have a lot of opportunities here to really provide lots of good, useful information. And an ad ID is really like an ISBN, except it's just for an advertisement. All right. So metadata in the information world. And here we go. So I just love this. Metadata, it's all around us. I think about data all the time. My family can tell you it's like, you know, we sit down to a meal and I'm like, hey, there's this cool data out there. This is what I discovered today, blah, blah, blah. And I like to think, where did that data come from? What did somebody want it in the first place? What are they going to do with it? And I look at this picture of this iceberg where data's at the top. So that could be like the information that's reported, you know, that you see that's reported. But underneath, there's that whole big chunk of metadata underneath, and there's all kinds of different information out there. So data really can just be the literal tip of the iceberg. And then there's all the information underneath. Metadata and taxonomy skills are in high demand because there's lots of data that's being collected and organizations really need help figuring out what they have. And the Masters of Information, those skills are just the thing to really keep you going. So let's dive in a little bit more about the business needs. I often get this question. They say, oh, you have a master's in library information science, so people think I'm a librarian. Do I work in a school or educational library? Do I work in business? There's actually other kinds of organizations that need those library skills, such as pharmaceuticals and legal, you name it, it's out there. Other people think, oh, I must work, you know, that I like to collect old things. I'm an archivist, and that I, you know, just sit there and I stick stuff into a database and catalog them. But I'm not. That said, I just want to make sure if that's what your interest and your passion is, the world desperately needs these roles to be filled. They are super important. So what I really am is a business information professional. I am the hunter and gatherer of information and data. And the data matchmaker. I like to think about people that come to me and they say, hey, you know, I'm looking for this. And then I'm thinking, well, do we have any of that kind of information already? Or where can I go to find it? How do I connect the dots to make sure that people can find what they want and what they need? So that leads me also like into some kind of an analyst role, So what is the data telling me? What's that story? In order to be able to capture metadata in the first place, you also often have to think about what's the workflow? Where's that data coming from? Is it going to change along the way? And because it might start as one thing. So if you think, having worked in the media and entertainment space, they may not want to tell you what the name of that movie is going to be. So they may just call it, Yona's movie, but at the end, then you actually have it's, the life and times of Yona. So it changes. So you have to figure out where are those places where the data becomes final. So the workflow ends up being a big part of people's jobs. I find I chose this image in the middle because of the data, because for both sides of this slide, you have data on both sides, you need knowledge, and you need to understand what you have, but often the audience can be a little bit different. So, so it's really having the education behind you and having that base of knowledge really can help you in this area. It's really important in this metadata world to make sure you understand the approach, how you're going to be getting that information, how is it going to be used, what's the application, and how are the results going to be presented. So building on this even more, business information professionals in the information world, we create order from chaos. There's often, it's like, oh, I have all this stuff, what do I do with it? One of the things that I really stress, and anybody who I've ever worked with, I really like one piece of metadata per field, because when you start putting a whole bunch of information into a single metadata field, then you have to think about it. If you need to pull it out, what are you going to search on? How are you going to report on it? If sometimes they call me Yona Levinson, but other times it's Levinson, Yona, somebody has to figure out what that pattern is. And so if you establish that I have a field for my first name, a field for my last name, and a separate field maybe for my title, and yet another field for my company, my organization, now I'm starting to have some order as opposed to just a single name field and something that might just say job. So we create order from chaos. We use taxonomies, which are lists of terms. And people are like, well, anybody can make a list. But taxonomies usually are hierarchical with some kind of, but not always, but a parent, an adult, and a child term. So it might be, if you look up taxonomy, you might get some kind of biological reference where it might have, and these are going to be wrong because I'm not a biology person, but like a mammal, and then you have maybe the ape family, and then you might have, the grandchildren. So parent would be the mammals, the child would be the apes, and then the grandchildren might be the chimpanzees or the spider monkeys, etc., things like that. Ontologies is where you relate terms to each other. I often think of, many of you probably have heard of the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. And I think that that's a great example, kind of like of an ontology, because Kevin Bacon he's a brother, he's a husband, he's a father, he's also an actor, he's a musician, he's all different kinds of things, but all of them put together, there's all these different touch points, and that's like an ontology. So he's in the band with his brothers, he's acted with his wife, et cetera, et cetera. So, but they all can, come back to that touch point. What I've found in my career is that I've often ended up in information technology groups because of the kind of work that's done. It's often around systems and databases and stuff like that. What's happening now is there's the increase in the need for data science, where people want to collect the information. So the databases have to be set up with the taxonomies, the metadata fields and terms that are allowable in those systems. And then you can pull on those and generate analytics and reports, pulling the information from there. That often ends up leading into the data architecture. What are the fields you have? What's the name of the fields going in system A, system B? Do they align? And that ends up being really important. I'm also a big supporter of standards, because when you're working with your data architects and working with information technology, rather than having to invent the wheel, there's a very good chance that there's something out there already that's going to be pretty good. And maybe you build off of that. But you also have to think about where your data goes. Is it wholly within your company, or is it also going out to other companies? If you think about book publishing, the book publishers have all this metadata, and then they have to push it out the door. So if you go, whether you go to Amazon or you go to Barnes and Noble, a physical store, or online, you'll notice that the information is sorted in a particular way so that you can find it. There's always the book title, the ISBN, the author's name, a description, etc. And that's all because of standards that the publisher provides that information, and then the receiver gets to act on it. So why did I get my master's degree? And what I found was, when I was trying to figure out where I was going to go next, did I want to stay at the particular job that I was in? I was at Pearson at that time. And actually, my mentor from at Pearson is a Rutgers MLIS grad, and he kept going, Yona, you need to get a master's in library and information science. So I listened to him, and here I am. And what that did was, by having the master's, if you start looking for jobs on various different platforms, you put in a search for MLIS or now MI, and you'll see that can often be a requirement. Having that degree is a requirement in order to get the jobs. I highly encourage you to go to Rutgers. I found it was just a wonderful experience in being able to take different kinds of classes. They also have the WISE program. So if Rutgers didn't offer a class, you could take it from another university. So I took a class at San Jose State. I think I took another one someplace else, but it's really exciting. And Rutgers can really open the door for you in that way. I also encourage you to get some kind of professional experience. So if you're in school now, look for those internships. My son is getting his bachelor's degree now. He's in a different field, although we do have metadata conversations, I have to tell you, and it's very enlightening. That there are already jobs being posted, even though it's just October, for summer internships. So I would certainly encourage you to look at October, November, December, and apply out there. I would hire interns at Warner Media, so they would often be summer interns, and then I was usually able to retain them part-time for fall and spring. What that did was it gave these grad students the ability to put that they had worked at Warner Media for an entire year, even though some of it was part-time. And that really can make a difference on your resume. I also encourage you to attend conferences and make sure, go to as many sessions as you can. Rub elbows. Don't be afraid to introduce yourself to somebody. If you're in the physical world, make sure you have a business card. And if you're in the virtual world, share LinkedIn information or whatever. And also, often you have different kinds of experiences. I would encourage you to try and present at these conferences. So what else should you do? Just always keep on learning. There's lots of great information out there on social media, different kinds of social media. I do follow LinkedIn a lot, also Twitter, and there's a number of other ones. I follow a lot of different groups, different people, different companies. There's often good articles and stuff out there. And it just really helps my knowledge increase. And that's really anything you can do to make those contacts and to learn as much as you can really will get you far. I would not be in my current job today if I didn't attend certain conferences where I learned about things that sounded interesting to me, and also getting my master's at Rutgers and meeting lots of great people. So that's my speech. I'm sticking to it, and thank you very much. Are there questions? If somebody's speaking, you're on mute.
No one's speaking right now, but I appreciate if people are leaving the session. Thank you very much for coming. I see that Michelle is leaving, and we appreciate having you here today. Thank you. If anybody has any questions, you can put them in the chat, or you can just raise your hand and speak.
So one of the things I can, while if people are thinking about questions, as I mentioned, you know, my son is getting his bachelor's degree and he had an internship, and then he would come back and he's studying accounting, and he would come back and we'd have these conversations, and it would be really all about metadata. And often what I find is that organizations don't understand that they're collecting metadata. People in the analytics space, they don't understand that they're collecting metadata. And if you can get them to really realize that if they partner with somebody like you who has that information science and metadata background, and you partner together and say, hey, if I get you this field, what can you do with it? Or tell me what you need, tell me what you're trying to do, and let me think if there's something out there that I can give you that's really going to help your, enhance your work and make it sing.
We have a question. What classes should one take if they want to specialize in metadata? I know you could take a metadata class, but do you recommend other classes?
It really depends on what's being offered. I would certainly, if there's any kind of advanced metadata, I would also, certainly take that. The cataloging courses are also very helpful because it tells you certainly on the library side, what kinds of information is captured about content, books in particular. And I would also encourage you to take some kind of analytics class to see what folks are using out there. And I think that gets you back into the build your own. Next question.
Are there any books or standards out there for entertainment advertising in the media or advertising metadata industry?
That are specifically about metadata in the media and entertainment space?
I think so, yes. This is from Kim.
Yeah, there are different kinds of books depending on what one needs. One of the things that you'll learn in grad school is that there's different kinds of metadata, which are like your descriptive, your structural, your administrative usage, technical, and preservation, and also sometimes structural. So on the technical side, there are absolutely some books on broadcast engineering or visual effects that you can search for that go through the different fields. Some of them are from SMPTE, the Society for Motion Picture Television Engineers. They have a lot of standards, but usually you have to pay for them. And that gets me back into try and go to conferences, which right now, because of COVID, a lot of them are online, and they are relatively inexpensive compared to what it would cost if you went live.
Great. I have a couple more questions. This is from Jill. I'm very interested in taxonomy and ontology. What is the pathway or general term in LAS that puts focus on this? And how much technical knowledge do you need to have with respect to databases, et cetera?
I would encourage people to, have some kind of really be able to work with Excel, also some SQL. And with regards to, that's really important because you want to be able to go in and pull data out and then be able to work with it, massage it the way you need it. So what was the rest of the question? I'm sorry.
Let me see here.
The other kinds of classes?
Yeah, how much technical knowledge do you need with respect to databases?
Yeah, I don't think you need to design databases, but again, you really need to be able to pull the data out. So the SQL or, there's different kinds of programming languages that you can go that will facilitate that. Okay.
This is from Neil. Is there a good way that you know of to get a taste of metadata work through volunteering? It's a good question.
Sure. I do. I think, first of all, I would look around at different places, look online and see if they're looking for volunteers. Libraries are still a good place to start. And the other thing is maybe look at what what you have at home, have you tried to catalog your own CD collection or your recipes? How would you go about it? And use some of, you can find lots of fantastic articles online that will help you get started. I'm also a big proponent of spreadsheets, whether it's Excel or Google workbooks, and use those columns and rows to really structure your data.
Okay, and I think this will be the last question. Are there any professional organizations related to taxonomy and metadata that you would recommend joining?
There's certainly the SLA, the Special Librarians Association. They've got stuff, and that's not straight libraries. I think there's the ALA, the American Library Association. And as students, you get some really good discounts on there. They offer different kinds of seminars. And so you can go to those and, different kinds of breakfast and learn or lunch and learn, and look around and see also if there are standards that you find out if they're having meetings, and you can just sit in and see what you can glean.
Okay, well, our time is cutting off here. We're running short, but we really appreciate everyone attending the session. And thank you so much for giving of your time as well. And your email is available at the top. If anybody has any further questions, I'm sure that you will be able to get responses, and that will be wonderful. And the recording will be available in the slide deck over the weekend. I'm sure you'll get an email from INFOcon detailing that. Marissa, do we miss anything?
No, I think we covered it all. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Yona.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.